Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert, the fantasy football counselor. And guess who I've got on with me today? I've got Rish from Fantasy Football Astronauts. What is going on, man?
How's it going, dude? I'm happy to be on here. Thanks for having me on.
I'm excited to have you on. We're going to tell everybody a little bit about you, about your podcast, how long you got started. Before we get into that, we got to tell everybody what the show is about. And this show is 3 sleepers nobody will tell you about. So I've got 3, he's got 3. We're going to go back and forth. Some really interesting names here we've got for you. These guys could be league winners for you guys. You never know, right? So I'm excited to get into this show. We're talking Fantasy Football Sleepers 2020. And also, before I get into this, guys, make sure you guys get the 16-round draft solution. I want to emphasize this to you guys. There's a link here below. Pinned comment, 16-round draft solution. Also, head on over to thefantasyfootballcast.com if you're listening in the car. First ever and only video training. Optimal players in each round. 16 rounds. Get it. All right, so let's talk, Rish, man. Tell me a bit about yourself. And, this year I kind of made a point to try to get as many people out as I can on the podcast, and especially guys that are kind of just getting into it a little bit. I've been at this for over 4 years, going into my 5th year, so I'm kind of like a bit of a veteran now. So I want to give the opportunity for other people to kind of share my platform, leverage my followers a little bit, because I think everybody's got some value to add and get a different perspective. And I really liked what you guys were doing, especially with the whole astronaut theme. At first, I thought it was kind of corny, but when I think about it, I actually like it. I'm going to be honest with you. There's other names I don't like, but at first I'm like, okay, this caught my attention. Number 1, it's good for catching attention. And number 2, I think there's a lot of play on stuff you could do, like your picks are out of this world and stuff like that. So that's what kind of so that's what it caught my attention because of the logo and the branding. And I'm like, who are these guys? And then I reached out and you guys are very knowledgeable. So Rish, I'm going to let you take the stage for like 2 minutes. Just tell us a bit about yourself, why you started, how long you've been going, and who else is involved.
Yeah. So actually, I appreciate all that. That's the name is something that me and my 2 buddies that played college football together. We thought, we all love fantasy football. Let's just create something. Let's create a podcast. We don't really care who listens, but we want to have fun with it. So we're thinking of different names, and like there's so many of like the fantasy football bros or friends or whatever, and we're like, what's something that nobody does and like is a group of people and something that's highly technical. And so we're like, why not the astronauts? We're exploring new worlds. We're taking into new levels in fantasy football. So that was just like a fun brainstorming thing. Didn't really mean anything to us at the time, but has been a lot of fun kind of, taking that brand and while we're blasting off and we're taking taking you to different planets and stuff. So that's been fun. I personally got into fantasy football because I played college football. I was a defensive back, and then football was done, and I really needed something to fill my time with. I dabbled in fantasy football a little bit before, but I was terrible. And I finally started diving in 2015 and just fell in love. And so I've been like really playing fantasy football for my 5th year now. Played a little bit before that, but wasn't any good. So that's kind of my background. I'm also a chiropractor. So I do a lot of work with sports injuries. So anyone that anytime there's an injury, I love to analyze that and love to kind of tell you the outlook and the recovery and all that. So
I need an adjustment. I'm actually cracking my neck as we speak, man. I could use one. I love the chiropractic, especially when they cut the middle of the back. It feels crazy. Crazy. Love it. The best. I need one right now, man. I might just go roll
I'll come on over.
One of those balls. Yeah, roll on one of those. Those foam rollers? I want to roll. I usually roll on one of those and I get a crack out of it.
Crack yourself back. Yep.
So yeah, man, make sure you guys check them out. Guys, there is a link here below to their podcast. Subscribe to them on YouTube and also check their podcast. I think available everywhere, iTunes, Spotify, all that fun stuff, right?
Yep.
So check it out. So let's get into this, man. I'm excited. 3 sleepers nobody will tell you about. Yours, after we talked a little bit about it before the show, we didn't analyze. He just kind of gave me his names. I gave him mine. And I think a couple of these guys are deep. You've got a super deep sleeper. We'll save that one to the end. But maybe I'll start with your first one. You're the guest. So why don't you give us a sleeper that nobody's really talking about and telling you about and could have a huge upside this year for Fantasy Football 2020?
Yeah, so my first sleeper is Deante Johnson. And the first thing that sticks out to me is his ADP. He's going in around the 11th round, which for me is just insane value at that spot. And this is a guy that's going into his second year. He finished with 92 targets last year and 680 yards. And that's without Big Ben. So he's for those of you that don't know, he's a wide receiver for the Steelers. And he was just really, really good with the ball in his hands. And when he was going in the pre-draft process, I kind of compared him to a Stephon Diggs, Antonio Brown type player. They have the same skill set. So he's the type of guy when you're looking at that offense, Big Ben loves to throw the ball. He's coming back. He'll be healthy this year. And he's got a type of player that he really likes. He liked Juju, did not like throwing to James Washington. And so I think when you have a high-powered offense and you have a guy that loves to throw the ball like Big Ben, Deante Johnson going in the 11th round has definite upside for a top 20 wide receiver. Like that's totally realistic. And if he does better than even I expect, he could finish top 10. Like in that offense, that's totally within his realm of outcome. So he's a guy that I'm trying to get everywhere. You're not going to hear a ton of him because that offense was so atrocious last year, and that really decreased his value. So Deante Johnson is the guy I'm super excited about.
And that's great. And that's one of the things I teach in 16 rounds. A lot of my content is a lot of people play off the recency bias. Now, if you go back to 2018, both Juju and Antonio Brown finished in the top 10 amongst wide receivers, 168 targets for AB, 166 for Juju, a ton of volume. Okay. So this is the thing. And if you look at it, Big Ben led in most attempts. I can't remember the number. It was like 600. It was a lot of attempts. So
yeah, tons.
He comes back healthy. You've got a really, really good offense there. I'm excited. I love that pick. And I'm going to add something to it right now. So this is a really cool strategy here that I've been implementing. And I suggest this is one of my tactics in 16 rounds is I go robust RB. I come back, I get myself, let's say a Hilton or a Cooks or a Diggs. My wide receiver 2 is, let's say, Deante Johnson. Yep. Then I, believe it or not, handcuff him with the guy I have. So my sleeper is Chase Claypool. I love the upside because the way I envision this is this. So you know that Juju plays well in the slot. You know, you got Deante, you got Claypool lining up outside. Washington sucks. Forget about them. They've got Switzer. They got all these other guys nobody cares about. So it's going to be Claypool and it's going to be Deante on the outside, Juju where he plays best in the slot. And then at that point, one of these guys is going to emerge, either as crazy as it sounds, as a wide receiver 1 potentially even. That's how big the ceiling is for these guys. So why not have all the stock? And that's a similar way I feel if you're going T.Y. Hilton. You can get him value, 4th, 5th, 6th round, you get T.Y. And then you come back and get Michael Pittman. This is huge strategy. This is huge value for you guys right here because literally you're waiting on wide receiver, loading up on the running backs because there's only a handful of minimal committee. And then you get yourself some ace wide receivers. You're covered at wide receiver. You're more than covered. So I love Chase Claypool. That's the guy I love. You know, he had like Megatron size and Megatron numbers at Combine. This guy is exciting. I know he's young, but they're kind of comparing him to Martavis, but I think he's got a better head on his shoulders. Hopefully he can stay on the field. Obviously, there's a ton of upside here. I'm excited of both Deante and Claypool, and absolutely huge amount of sleeping on these guys. I can't even believe how far they're falling. I mean, because everyone's thinking Juju, but what if Juju just ends up being the slot guy? What if he doesn't get that volume that everybody thinks? Who knows? Maybe these two guys emerge. Why not have both of them? And you can for 2020.
Right. And I think the thing that's a little bit underrated about Claypool is he's so big and so fast that they could line him up. They could transition him to some tight end slots, right? Like we've seen players transition their player tags in these leagues midway through the season. If Chase Claypool, I actually had him higher as a tight end. And so if Chase Claypool automatically is getting tight end and wide receiver looks, you don't know how that's going to play out midseason. And so he could be a guy that maybe you slot into a tight end role if they happen to change his position in the fantasy leagues. What I forget the platforms. So
now, funny you say. I'm glad you made that point because I'll tell you something. I follow a bunch of Steelers pages, and I just found out recently because there was buzz about the tight end, but they're saying he's going to play as a wide receiver. But yes, I like the diversity and the transition depending on the platform and where you slot him. If you have an extra flex spot, if it's tight end only or 2 tight ends, you got the diversity of doing that. And I think Claypool's an absolute steal late round. Just take him.
He's basically free.
He's free. I mean, it's crazy. So you go Deante, I go Claypool. Let's get off the Steelers train. Who's your second sleeper that nobody will tell you about?
So this one hurts me. I'm a Bears fan. This one hurts me to say, but Alan Lazard is a sleeper that, nobody's talking about him. Everyone's disappointed that the Packers didn't draft a wide receiver, and rightfully so. And so I think Alan Lazard's a guy that can step in and have fantasy relevance because you've seen Aaron Rodgers have success with two wide receivers, 2 top 20, 2 top 12 wide receivers in the past. And Alan Lazard is a monster target. He's 6'5", 227. And so that's a guy that Aaron Rodgers started to rely on at the end of the season. You saw the last 2 games that Green Bay had. He had 9 targets in one, 8 targets in another. He had a game over 100 receiving yards. So this is a guy that I think is going to start to see more targets, more volume. And he's got big playability because he is so big. Aaron Rodgers, great with that deep ball. You can just throw it up to your 6'5" wide receiver. And really that wide receiver 2 job is wide open. Geronimo Allison's gone. Marquez Valdez-Scantling did not do anything last year. And so I think Alan Lazard is in line for those targets, those number 2 targets. And he's even cheaper than Deante Johnson. He's not going until the 14th round. And
crazy.
When you think about getting Aaron Rodgers' number 2 target in the 14th round, that's nuts. That's bonkers.
I know, it's crazy. And he stepped up last year. And actually, we talked before this. When you told me Alan Lazard, I got upset because that was one of my sleepers. And I absolutely love him. I've been preaching this guy a lot. I call him the Lizard. Everyone calls him Lizard. He actually changed it because I've been watching this guy. It's kind of creepy how I follow these guys. I'm obsessed with knowing more about them for my fantasy team. I want to know what they're eating, if they're sleeping, if they're bike riding late at night in case they get injured. I watch everything these guys do because if they're on my team, they better be performing on their best potential. Okay, so I've been watching him, and he's got this Lizard thing on his Instagram. And I'm excited about him. Tons of upside, tons of ceiling. And again, they did not address the wide receiver position. And you got to understand that if Aaron Rodgers stays there and everything goes as planned, if he should start, Love's breathing down his neck. They drafted Love. Is this Rodgers, backup, or is he going to be his replacement? We don't know. But if I'm Aaron Rodgers, everyone's talking down on me. The haters, it's time for me to step up. And they got to throw the ball because they ran it a lot last year. They can only get so far. They got to throw it. Adams was hurt. Adams comes in, draws a double coverage, opens things up for Lazard, and I'm excited. It's going to be a very interesting offense to get, and Lazard is going to be an absolute steal. I love him as well. So
hurts me though as a Bears fan.
Yeah, I know it hurts. Yeah, that's a whole other topic here. Let's go off on a side tangent. We're not talking sleepers, but people are sleeping on this guy because I'm getting him in the 6th round. He's a steal. Here's the deal. I want to talk to you about this, Rish, here because I got a vent here. When you look at running back, you got to look at guys that have minimal committee and a ton of volume. The guy I absolutely love this season, he didn't look electrifying last year's David Montgomery. 242 attempts. I'm like a fantasy encyclopedia here. 242 attempts, 3.7 yards per carry, 889 yards, and 6 touchdowns on the ground. Am I right? I think it's about that. Yeah. So anyway, that's all I do is study this crap. So Montgomery is the guy that I love, creating holes when holes weren't there. And Nagy is on a short leash. They've got to run the ball. What are your thoughts? And you're getting an RB1 with upside who's going to get over 1,000 yards, at least a floor of 8 to 10 touchdowns. You're getting him in the 6th round. 5th round at least. Yeah. What do you think of Montgomery? Yes or no? Boom, bust, trust, bust. What do you think of Montgomery being a Bears fan?
So that's actually really funny you say that. The one of the gyms that I work out of, I also do some training there. David Montgomery works out there, and he's my guy, like in real life. Love David Montgomery. So I've actually gotten to see some of his training this offseason. A big thing that people knocked him for was his speed, his top end speed and his acceleration. And I can tell you, I've seen the before and after videos. He has gotten better acceleration, and his top speed is better. I've already seen that on video. So I'm 100% in on David Montgomery. If you look at the last several games of the season, I think maybe the last 4 or 5 games of the season, his yards per carry jumped up over 4. So on the whole season, it was rough, but you're still looking at a guy that was top 15 in the league in touches and in carries. So definitely gets the ball a lot, and he's a better receiver than people give him credit for.
He's actually better than Tariq Cohen, because Tariq Cohen, I believe, if I'm wrong, tell me. I think he led the team in drop passes.
I believe so.
Terrible.
Yeah,
he was terrible. So yeah, they got to believe in him. Again, we had to go off on that side tangent.
Yeah.
Draft David Montgomery. He's valuable.
Quick thing for you. If you do want to go look at my Instagram, I just posted a video of me working with him. So little plug to the personal one.
Hold on. I'm going right now.
Look me up.
It's the Astronauts. What's your Insta?
It's dr.michael.tal.risher.
Oh my God. Say it slowly. Dr.
Michael MICHAEL.tal TAL .risher RISHER.
Right here. Okay, guys, there it is right there.
That first video.
Oh my goodness, right there. So you know David Montgomery.
Yes, sir.
Do you have his phone number?
He's my guy. He's my guy. All I can say, I can't say too much without giving up.
Is that you training with him? Are you guys in his house? What is this?
Yeah. That's he gave me permissions.
You're training with David Montgomery. Get the hell out of. Can we get him on the show? I want to get him on the show.
I don't know. He's not that'd be something you'd have to take up with him.
Can you just tell him the counselor loves him? Can you do that for me?
I will.
That is, I'm going to post this on my Instagram. This is crazy. We're going to talk about this. All right. So I love David Montgomery. He definitely knows who I am because I tag him a lot on my stuff. Tell him the counselor said ask him. Say the counselor says what's up.
All right.
And he believes in him. And I believed in him from day one. And Nagy's got to pull his head out of his ass, because I think that's the issue here. It's a coaching thing. It's not a Nagy thing. It's not a Montgomery thing. All right, let's move on. My sleeper here, I think you went with yours, right? Did you go with your other one?
I did, yes. So I've gone Deante Johnson and Lazard so far.
Okay, so my next one here is, and again, there's a ceiling here, but he's going to be boomer bust. Trust me, this guy's going to be my wide receiver 4, but I love the ceiling because I think Tyreek Hill gets hurt again, and there's so much volatility. Yes, there's a lot of mouths to feed, but he's a clear-cut number 2. The guy I'm talking about is Mecole Hardman. I love him. And again, not as much as I feel warm and fuzzy about Deante and Lazard. I like those guys a little bit more, but Mecole Hardman's talented. He's a speedster. He's got a ton of upside. And you never know, man. I can imagine this guy getting more volume. The only problem is Robinson came in. They had Watkins there. There's just so many targets. But if some guy gets injured, this is kind of the go-to guy. And again, a guy you can plug and play, especially some big weeks if he's got some good matchups for DFS. Huge target. What do you think of Hardman? Do you think he's boomer busty, right? Like, it doesn't make you feel warm, but it makes you feel like, oh, this guy could have, if Hill goes down, this guy could step up, right?
He's a guy that in college was not he transitioned to wide receiver, so he's still newer to the position. And I mean, honestly, I want all pieces of that offense. I think if any of them go down, he's a guy that could step up and take a good role. So I love Mecole Hardman. I think he's going to be a really good DFS play this year. Yep. And that's where I'll have a lot of him is in DFS. But I love him as a stash on my dynasty rosters because you never know who's going to get injured, and you want every single piece attached to Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And I think for redraft, he's going to be very cheap because likely what's going to happen is he's not going to he'll get drafted, and then he's not going to see a ton of targets in week 1 or 2. He's going to be a guy that's going to get dropped after week 1 or week 2, and then mid-season is where he's really going to hit if he hits this season. So he's a guy that you're going to be able to get off of waivers in week 2, week 3, and I love that because that's someone else that you get to draft then, I think. So if you're taking him, you get him in a super late round, and if you didn't actually get to draft him, he's a guy that you get a second chance on off waivers. So I love the Mecole Hardman. He's for sure boom bust, but he's got a lot of potential value.
Well, here's the problem, okay? With Tyreek, he's going early, first, second round. I'm not investing that in Tyreek Hill. I'm just not. A guy that's also volatile, who has really good production when you look at it from a year point of view, but then game by game, he has these boom bust games. He's had his off-field issues in the past, and you've had the volatility and then the injuries and stuff like that. So if I can not get Tyreek in the first round, but I can get this guy in like the 14th round and pay literally nothing, then I'm going to get Mecole Hardman and just squat on him. And then maybe if Hill goes down, that's good because I load up on RBs early. So I think Mecole Hardman's a sleeper, man. I mean, there's some ceiling there. So I'm gonna roll with him. So let's hear your third one. And when you told me your third one, I was like, who? Because I've kind of cut off the Arizona Cardinals offense completely. Maybe Drake's got a high ceiling. Love Kyler. So Drake and Kyler are an exception, but I don't know if I want to pay the Drake price there. They've got Eno Benjamin now. They've acquired. He could come in. You never know. I don't trust. The Cardinals have zero integrity in regards to who their starter is. They may cut you. They don't care. So that's why I don't trust anybody here. And then they're going to line up 4 wide. They've got a guy who maxed out at 109 targets last year. Fitzgerald maxed out at 109 targets. And now you're telling me Hopkins is going to come in, who needs 150 plus targets to be a top 5 receiver where he's sitting right now. Again, this is the same type of thing. Rish, stick with me. Last year, everyone's like, Odell's a top 5 wide receiver. I'm like, how? Landry's the wide receiver 1. Landry's more talented. Landry's got the rapport with Baker. And Landry maxed out at 149 targets in 2018. How is Odell now going to come in and get 150 to 170 targets with Landry still there? And that's the same way I feel with Hopkins here. So when you told me this guy, I was just like, he's not on my radar. So I'm going to knock you. I'm going to come at you. I'm going to say,
absolutely,
I think this is a terrible sleeper, but nobody's telling you about him. So it fits the show. Okay. So who is this guy, please?
So the reason first of all, it's Dan Arnold. And yeah, if you've never heard of him, I don't blame you. He actually gets the wide receiver and tight end tag in a lot of leagues, and so that's kind of what makes him appealing there. You have multiple different slots you can put him in. Granted, he's not going to be one of your top wide receivers that you're going to start, but you never know. It's just versatility. So Dan Arnold only played 3 games with the Cardinals last season. They got him late. In those 3 games, he had a combined over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So this is a guy that came on, and yeah, you're right. That's an offense that's very hard to predict, and there's not going to be a ton of targets to go around. You have the law of the conservation of targets, so you know that there's a ceiling, and you know that the guys that are already there are going to get those targets. So Dan Arnold, I think, is a guy that I found while I was in my tight end premium league, and so he's got a little bit more value there. But he's someone that you really don't know. He is free. And for me, when I'm drafting tight ends, if I don't get one of the top 3 guys, and I'm usually not a tight end early guy, I'm going to wait as late as I can to get my tight end. So he's someone that if I'm looking at the potential tight ends to draft, he's someone that everyone's going to go on that tight end run, and you can just stock up on the good wide receivers and the good running backs and load up there and then get a really, really high ceiling. You saw what he did in 3 games. You saw how valuable he was in those 3 games. And it's a very low risk guy as maybe a tight end 2 or a waiver ad or however you want to do it. So it is a volatile offense, but the way that I play the tight end position, he makes a lot of sense for my rosters because I want high upside guys that could boom every week because I don't value those. I don't go after those top 5 tight ends.
Neither do I. I never waste an early pick on a tight end. I remember years ago, people were really coming at me when I said, wait, get George Kittle in the 10th round and do not do not. And I emphasize this, and I wanted to tattoo it on my chest here. Do not draft Gronkowski round 1. And everybody, the mainstream sheep, were saying, hey, you got to draft Gronkowski round 1. That's what you got to do. That's what everyone said. So no, just wait. You get a couple wild card tight ends, a couple rookies, whatever, and you do well. I do well every single year. Last year, not the greatest with my tight end. I had Hawkinson, but I think, it's not all his fault. And that goes into my last sleeper here, guys. Again, make sure you guys subscribe, leave a thumbs up, leave your comments, but let me know what you guys think. Are you more interested in Dan Arnold? No, nobody cares. Or TJ Hawkinson. That's who my sleeper is. I can get him late as a backup. I could go Higbee a little bit earlier, a little safer maybe, and maybe back him up with a Hawkinson or a Fant or someone like that. But I think Hawkinson, because if you look at his first 4 games, I think he had like 2 touchdowns first 4 games. Stafford went down. And so did everything else. There was so much uncertainty with that offense with the different quarterbacks. I don't know who the heck they were, Driscoll or whatever the hell they were.
David Blau.
Yeah, like who cares about those guys? So you got TJ Hawkinson. I'm so shallow, man. All I care about is fantasy relevant. Everybody else doesn't matter. I could care less. I could care less, man. You can bring me flowers, bring me chocolates. You can buy me whatever. If you're not putting up fantasy points, I don't care about you. That's it. Flowers and chocolates is a terrible example, but you know what I mean. All right. All right. So TJ Hawkinson is my sleeper. No one's talking about, again, because he had a bad year last season, but I was seeing a lot of red zone targets. He missed a couple passes. They were deflected, blocked, whatever it was. I think he's going to be a huge red zone target for these guys. I think he takes a step up this year. And I think they improved their O-line. Maybe I think they did. And they've got, Swift there. So I think they're going to get decent pass protection.
Yeah.
So he may not have to line up as a blocker as much. Maybe they're going to use him as a receiver. I like him. I'm all in on Hockenson. And again, they invested a first round pick in him. Did they not?
He was like number 8 or something overall.
They're going to use him. He's going to be used. I cannot believe he is like, I don't know where he's from. I did this mock draft, and I actually got him. Yeah, this is me. I drafted second in this mock draft. I ended up getting him in the 12th round, and I bet you he would have fallen like farther. Honestly, I got
probably.
Him. Yeah.
My only concern is Matt Stafford's historical non-use of tight ends. I think I love. I call him TJ Gronkinson because I think he's just such a good talent. But like that's literally my only concern. There's a lot of different mouths to feed, but when guys go off, they go off. It may be Marvin Jones, it may be Kenny Golladay, it may be TJ Hockenson. And so if you are drafting him as your second tight end, that's huge, because if Marvin Jones gets injured, then all of a sudden you have the number 2 target on the team. And I love that. So yeah, I had TJ Hockenson a lot last year. I drafted him as my tight end 2. There's a good amount of hype around him, so I didn't actually get to start him in a ton of places, but I have him on a lot of dynasty rosters, and he's going to be good in redraft this year, I hope. Yeah, so I'm all in on that one as well. Just the one concern.
So there you have it, guys. There are some sleepers. The mainstream, we should rephrase that. The mainstream won't tell you about. They just kind of go for namesy guys. That's what I don't like. Like, they go for the name, and the names don't always win you leagues. Like, this is one thing that my strategy, this is what I saw years, of watching fantasy football. It's like, people say, oh, you got to draft Frank Gore, or like, why would I put Gore on my team? But they'll put him on because here's what happens. And that's why I created 16 rounds, is because a lot of people after the 6th round are kind of lost and confused. They're kind of going for names, and they're not going for guys. They don't look at the depth chart. They don't live and breathe it like us. So I think they're at a disadvantage by getting guys that are just names. And I see names like, I'll give you an example right now. Okay. So I see Tariq Cohen going in the 11th round. Who did I get? I would rather go for a guy with more upside, like a Joshua Kelly or someone like that, right? I like to take risks later on. So other people here, Marlon Mack, I wouldn't even touch Marlon Mack now, because I always aim top of the depth chart. I'll give you a couple of things. Another guy that got drafted in the 11th round in this mock draft, Naheem Hines. Like, why?
All of a sudden you have 3 running backs from the Colts that are drafted in the first 11 rounds. Like, there's not enough carries. There's not enough targets to go around for all those guys.
Exactly.
Take the best one.
Another guy that went here, Deshaun Jackson, Blake Jarwin, Boston Scott. These are all 12th round guys. Go for the guys that have the higher ceiling. This is what I emphasize 16 round. A couple other guys here that went later here that I wouldn't touch. I don't know who else there is here. I can't. You guys get the point. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't aim high on the depth chart, guys. You're gonna dominate. That's a fantasy football draft strategy for you guys. So, I mean, that wraps it up. Rish, I'm excited. And David Montgomery, you gotta get him a message for me. Tell him I'm his best buddy. He might think I'm a little creepy because I always tag him. Right?
I'll do my best.
So the counselor's obsessed with Montgomery. He's my man. He's my man crush.
I love that. He's an awesome dude. He's an awesome dude. If you go read the post, you can just see how hard he works. He's continuing to put in work this offseason. I think he's going to be a beast this year.
Well, that's what attracted me to him, is the work ethic. And I always look for those guys that are out there grinding, hustling, the guys. And I'll give you a quick example before I let everybody go. Last year, it was Deebo Samuel and Pettis. Everyone's saying Pettis in round, I don't know what it was, 3-4. He's the wide receiver 1. So I'm watching the tape. I'm watching the social media. I'm literally watching Deebo Samuel, and he looked like Mr. T, like in Rocky 3. Like, he's out there grinding. Guys, go watch Rocky 3 if you haven't yet. He looked like Mr. T when he was training. And in you see is Pettis going like doing all these GQ poses and like in suits and like
prima donna.
I'm watching this guy and I'm watching this guy. I'm like, give me Deebo Samuel in like the 50th round instead of a 4th, 5th round pick on Pettis all day. And that's what you got to look at. You got to think outside the box. You got to spot the talent. You got to stalk them on social media. I don't care what you do, as long as you make sure that the right players on your team. Trust me, I give these players crap. One day I saw Todd Gurley on a bicycle cruising. I'm like, dude, you're going to get hurt. Get off the bike. You know what I mean? Like, so my best interest, I care about their best interest and their health.
Yep.
That's what it is, Rish.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. How do they find you again, please?
Thanks for having me on. You can find me on Twitter. It's at FF_Rish. And then check out our channel on YouTube, the Fantasy Football Astronauts. We're on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all of those. So yeah, go find us.
All right. Well, thanks for being on, Rich. We appreciate it, guys. Smash thumbs up, get 16 rounds, leave a comment below. Let me know which sleeper you like. And we are out of this world, Rich. There you go. There's my cheesy line of the day. We're out. Talk soon.